This is the Stromer ST1x. It's effectively the budget model in the Stromer lineup. Even so, it's not a cheap bike in any stretch of the imagination. It's still very much a premium machine. It is powered by a direct drive rear hub motor, which may seem in modern terms to kind of not be there, but there are certain advantages to a direct drive. Speed is one of them, and smoothness and silence is another. The Stromer's been around for a number of years, very popular in its native Switzerland. It's a super refined bike. It has built-in GPS, and if you look there, there's a little signal, so it's sending that over the mobile network. So if you lose the bike, you can track it again. You'll see everything here is nicely finished off. The cables are all bound together. The integration of the battery is absolutely magnificent. See, the battery actually pops out here. I'll unlock it, and that's how the battery is. This is the smallest battery in the lineup of 618 watt hours, which is still pretty big. That would be about, what, 18 amp hours normally, something like that. Although it runs on 48 volts, so it's not directly comparable, but the 618 is. Interesting thing is that it seems to use the battery pretty efficiently, so my commute, which on my bike will gobble up 2/3 of a bigger battery than that, on my ride this morning it used less than half. So that battery will take you a long way, and they make bigger ones as well, so you can get an 800 and something, and I think even a 900 and something watt hour battery, which is really phenomenal. It all clicks in nicely, all beautifully finished, and everything's sturdy. The mud guards are nice and wide, good coverage, and sturdy, so they don't knock around. That's the charging port there, nice little magnetic hatch with a Rosenberg plug, all beautifully done. This one has added suspension forks. The base model comes with a rigid fork, but I always think having suspension forks on an e-bike is a nice addition, and I always recommend that. The brakes are good. Interesting thing about the brakes is that these are e-bike brakes, and there's a switch in each one, and what that does is, as you pull up the brakes, it engages a regenerative mode, and that's again something you can do with a direct drive motor. So it charges a little bit when you pull the brakes up. It doesn't really do a whole lot, but you can feel the extra braking effect. So if nothing else, it just provides extra assistance to the braking, but it does put a little bit of power back into the battery. This one also has an added suspension seat post, and that's not a standard thing. The saddle was nice and comfortable. It might look a bit narrow, but that's the sporty stance of this bike. Actually is, it seems right for the bike anyway. The handlebars are quite narrow, but again that helps with the agility of the bike and getting between cars. 26-inch wheels seems like a little bit kind of retro, but the effect of that is that it makes the bike quite agile and nimble. If you want to pop a wheelie on an e-bike, this would be the one to do it on, because it's quite short in its overall structure. The one negative of that is that you don't end up with a whole lot of rack space. So this is quite a short rack. My panniers only just fitted on here, and even then, once they were hanging centered there, the potential for a bit of heel strike when you come back on your pedal stroke is always there. So that's one of the downsides of having smaller wheels, is that the whole bike is a bit shorter. Being the budget one, doesn't have made some concessions on things like the lighting. That's a fairly sort of entry-level tail light, and similarly the headlights are the sorts of things you'd see on a kind of a $3,000 bike. That's your sort of stock Roxham or whatever it is headlamp. But everything does actually work well. The light is more of one of those be scene lights than something that's going to light up the path in the dark in the dead of winter, so you'd want to have an extra light on that. The gearing, Shimano SLX 11 speed. Again, one of the things I didn't quite like was the front ratios. I think this is a 44 tooth front chainring, and I found myself a little bit undergeared. The bike is pretty fast, there's no doubt about that, and you can cruise along happily in the mid 40s, but I found that even on the smallest gear in the front, at smallest gear in the back, I found myself a little bit undergeared, so I'd prefer to see maybe a 48 tooth or even a 50 on the front, because this bike certainly has pace. It isn't speed limited, not even to 45, so it keeps on pushing. The harder you can go, you'll continue to get a little bit of motor assistance even if you're batting along at 50 or so. There's a massive range here, and I found myself not really needing some of those big gears, so I'd rather see more gearing on the front, slightly longer gearing, because there's plenty of range here, so you won't ever feel like you're missing out. Overall, the bike works really well. It is fast, there's no doubt about it. Some bikes might climb better, some of the mid-drives, but there are a few bikes that are as fast as this one. This one has, the motor is rated at 30 Newton meters of torque, which when you're comparing it to some of the mid-drives, some of them are rating themselves at 90 Newton meters, but it's not really comparable, because when it's in the front, it's working through the gears, and so there's a reduction there. So I would suggest that 30 Newton meters on the back is more like about 75 on the front, something of that sort of nature. Stromer do make other motors as well. Essentially the frame is the same on all of their bikes. This is the ST1. They also have an ST2 and an ST5. With the ST5 they go up to a 48 Newton meter motor, which would be absolutely brilliant. That would be just so powerful. And power is a thing that you don't have to use all of it all the time, but it's nice to have there when you want it and when you want to climb up a hill. So that's 60% more powerful than, more powerful is actually the wrong word. It is as much torque, so as much hill climbing and acceleration capability as this one. It also obviously will give you a higher top speed, just because you've got more push. It's a bit odd. You turn it on, you hold your finger at the bottom. It has a little screen here. You can see where the Smart Motion Pacer got its inspiration from. It's a good place to put it in that it doesn't get in the way, but it's also not that convenient a place to watch your speed and things like that. I prefer it up here, so I normally put my Garmin there. The other things you've got settings, so it's got a lock, and then you need a pin code to unlock it. You can do some of the some tweaks and what have you here, setting this sensitivity. There's a whole lot more tweaks you can do on the app as well. You can with the app you can see where the bike is, so if it gets nicked, you'd be able to pull up the GPS, and because this thing's transmitting location, you'll be able to find it again. I would prefer to see some physical security on the bike. For example, a built-in frame lock would be really nice, but there's nothing stopping you from taking your own chain or possibly even adding one, although I noticed that there's no mounting space for a frame lock, so you would have to use a chain or a bus, one of those fancy things that you can get now. I forget what the name is, a Bordeaux or something like that. But overall, this is a really nice bike, great ergonomics. It's very refined over a number of generations. It has no obvious faults as such. One of the things that is a little bit unusual about it is the profiling of the torque sensor. When you start pedaling, it doesn't come through very strongly, but as you get up to about 30 k's an hour, it gives you an extra sort of second wind, and you really start to rip along at some pace. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but it is really great, and it has tremendous power. It is a fast bike, and it is a powerful bike, no doubt about that, and it is a highly refined bike too.